Hello, all. I'm your host, Akshita Shetty, and welcome to Maker's Bar. Today, we have Dr. Fred Jordan, who is the co founder and CEO of FinalSpark with us. He's joining us all the way from Switzerland, and I'm really excited to learn about his company today because I mean, there's some pieces of technology that even I don't understand. So, I would love to sit with Fred and understand what FinalSpark does. Welcome, Fred, to Maker's Bar.
Oh, welcome. I'm very happy to be there, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about FinalSpark.
Yeah, I'm excited too because I really don't understand much about this technology. So I'm really interested in learning about it as well, as I mentioned in my emails too. So tell us a little bit about your early career and how did you end up starting FinalSpark? And how did it lead to starting FinalSpark? So,
Well, I'm a French physicist, and I went in Switzerland about 30 years ago to make
uh-huh,
a PhD in signal processing.
uh-huh,
And there I met a guy who was doing a PhD with me. So
mhm,
this was at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology.
okay,
And signal processing, basically, it's applied mathematics, let's say, okay?
yeah,
And following this, we created a first company called Alp Vision,
hmm,
which enables to detect authentic or counterfeit products just using a smartphone.
okay,
Okay. This company runs pretty well,
hmm,
and we're still running it today.
hmm,
And in 2014, we decided that we would love to work more again in fundamental research,
okay,
specifically in AI,
hmm,
and work on AI in a way that people do not normally do, okay?
okay,
Following paths which have not been really followed.
okay,
And what happened is that 5 years ago, we decided to work on a new type of processor that
okay.
instead of using transistors, would use living neurons instead.
Okay. Okay, you'll have to tell us what living neurons mean in the world that we live in right now, which is always talking about GPUs. I don't know what living neuron means, but we'll dig deeper. So,
Well, on GPU, what you're doing on GPU, basically, it's that you are running also neurons, but these
yeah,
are artificial neurons, okay?
yeah, okay,
You have accumulating um, some data coming from other neurons, and
uh-huh,
using an activation function, typically ReLU, for instance, you calculate the state of these neurons and you propagate this. Okay,
okay,
and this is how ChatGPT is working fundamentally, and all the things we talk about in AI. Most of the things are based on simulations of neurons. Okay,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
digital simulations of neurons, and this simulation can run indeed, as you write, on GPU. Okay,
yeah,
because these are fundamentally parallel processes. Okay,
okay,
very good. And I love artificial neural networks. I've been doing this also for the past 30 years.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but there is artificial neurons basically is inspired by the real ones. Okay, and
okay,
the real ones are the ones that we have in our brains.
mm-hmm,
Okay, and these are not simulations.
mm-hmm,
These are living neurons. Okay,
yeah,
which also process successfully information.
okay,
So the very candid idea was to say, well, instead of trying to simulate neurons, maybe we can use real biological living neurons,
okay,
connect them with electrodes for input and output, and
yeah,
process information through the network of these living neurons.
okay. And does this mean these are real living neurons, like your
Yes.
brain cells?
Yeah.
Okay, and how does that kind of obviously this isn't research, right? So how does that kind of work? Um,
So, how that kind of work is a very generic question.
yes, exactly. It's a very generic question, and I would love to hear more.
So first, just to be clear, okay, it's like a bit like quantum computers, okay?
Okay.
Computers basically are a concept, okay? But
Hmm.
there is no quantum computers which are used for production today, okay? It's
Hmm.
the same for so-called biocomputers. This is what we are, okay?
Okay.
Biocomputers is still a field of research, okay?
Yeah.
So you can connect to our biocomputers, but you won't be able to compute anything useful. You will be able to do some research in biocomputing.
Yeah.
Uh, but basically, what we are doing here in this lab is that because we have a cell culture lab, okay,
Hmm.
where we actually culture human neurons, okay,
Hmm.
multiply them, we connect them in small balls, which
Hmm.
are called brain organoids, because these are not real organ, but they are similar to the
Okay.
real organ, okay, that we
Yeah.
have in the brain.
Yeah.
And these are small balls, not like this. It's more like a half a millimeter of diameter, very small, but you
Okay.
can see them with your eyes. Okay.
Yeah.
And we put them on electrodes.
Uh-huh.
And with these electrodes, we can send some current to stimulate them,
Okay.
but also measure the action potential. These are the small spikes that the neurons generate to
Okay.
receive some information from them.
Okay.
So we can have a sort of discussion with them.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting.
And the whole game, okay,
Yeah.
is to have a useful discussion. So
Okay.
a useful discussion, I tell you what is useful discussion.
Hmm.
For instance, if you talk about artificial neural networks, a useful discussion is I give a picture of a dog, and the
Yeah.
output of the system is it's a dog.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
give a picture of a cat, output of the system is it's a cat. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
want to achieve the same thing basically. But instead of having simulations of neurons, through the electrodes, you can send a picture of, of an animal and it will tell you which animal it is. Okay. We are not at this level yet. Far from this.
Okay.
Okay. The
Okay.
concept is exactly the same fundamentally for artificial neurons and therefore AI and living neurons and living processors.
Okay. That's very interesting, actually. So it's like the 2012, I think, when they had the cat moment where it could recognize this is a cat, right? So that has not happened yet.
No.
So, okay. So as you're working on FinSpark, right? Obviously, you are funding it yourself. You've got a successful company. What would be like your first product line as you're building this artificial neuron platform? Yeah. I'm
Well,
sorry, a living neuron platform, not artificial.
yeah, not, not artificial. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what
Yes. Exactly.
I can say, surprisingly, the first product line that we have was not something that was thought as a product line at all. Okay, which
Okay.
often it happens this way, in startups. Okay,
Yeah.
um, it actually what happened is that there was the COVID,
Yeah.
and during the COVID, what happened is that we couldn't run experiments on our brain organoids because we could not come to the lab.
Mm-hmm.
Experiments, this is always the same, is sending stimulations, measuring response, and see if we have modified the state of the neurons. Okay.
Yeah.
But because we could not come to the lab, we modified the lab in order to operate it remotely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
At the end of the COVID, we were able from home to perform all our experiments.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
say, well, that's wonderful. Actually, we have something that we can operate from 50 kilometers away, but
Okay.
uh, others could use it remotely,
Mm-hmm.
very far from us. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we asked to a number of universities if they were interested to
Mm-hmm.
make experiments. And
Mm-hmm.
then we had so many universities that were enthusiastic about it.
Okay.
And so we said, okay, actually, we have a product without knowing it,
Yeah.
and we're going to call it the Neuro Platform. It's a
Okay.
platform for neuro experiments.
Uh-huh.
And today we have about 10 universities everywhere in the world who are using 24/7 our brain organoids remotely for research in biocomputing. And we
Mhm.
have even now some private companies which are paying to rent on a monthly basis
Uh-huh.
access to our brain organoids to perform remote experiments.
Oh, very nice.
So if you tell me about product line, this was an unexpected product line, which is the neural platform. But the real product line is not this. The ultimate thing would be a bit like Amazon Web Services, for instance. Okay,
Yeah.
on AWS you can run AI. Okay,
Yeah.
and when you make a request on ChatGPT, you are not running this most of the time on your own computer, but remotely
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
cloud
Yeah.
computers.
Amazon.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we believe we can do the same.
Mm-hmm.
We can build a server, a bio server, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that will be able to process AI request, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then the benefit of doing this would be to decrease the power consumption of
Mm-hmm.
the server
Mm-hmm.
by something between 100 and 1000,
Mm-hmm.
because living neuron is about 1 million times more efficient than its digital simulation.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that I understand, it doesn't sound very far-fetched, to be honest. Initially, when I heard, I was like, "What is this?" It doesn't make sense to me at all. Now, I think it makes more sense to me, for sure. So, I mean, obviously, this is like the ultimate nirvana for somebody who's done a PhD in signal processing, right? You are like literally stimulating brain signals. Um, so, um, so tell me, did you like initially start with this idea, or did it like evolve, or like did you face challenges as you thought about it? uh, yes, of course. Like as a researcher, you want to get to the next cutting edge of science, right, at the cusp of science and technology, right? What are your challenges, and as you started, I mean, of course, it's very hard to explain to people as well. But what were your initial challenges as you started working on this uh, company?
Well, first, we started to work on things that we knew, okay,
Yeah.
which was programming, okay. So this I know, okay, I can program, okay. So and we were working on a different, on a specific type of artificial
Yeah.
neural network, which are called spiking neurons. So spiking neurons are sophisticated, I would say, more sophisticated simulations of neurons than the ones you would find in ChatGPT, in the
Yeah.
sense that instead of just having steady state, okay, they are spiking. So their activity is varying through time, like real ones, a bit like real ones, okay?
Okay.
And so this is a field of research which is known. We were not the only one working on this by far. Spiking neurons have been studied for the past 20 years. Okay, but we thought it was an interesting direction of research. So we start working really on this because few people are working on it. Okay,
Yeah.
and what happened is that after a few years working on this, we realized that for a few hundreds of simulated spiking neurons, we needed kilowatts of power.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes the problem. If you are using a solution that needs kilowatts of power for a few hundreds of neurons, you are just pursuing a path which is bad. Okay, it's not going to scale. You're sure. Okay, you
Okay.
cannot do this with 1 million neurons. Like, totally unrealistic. Okay,
Yeah.
so as an engineer, you have to be pragmatic and say, okay, I still want spiking neurons, so which are more realistic, but I
Yeah.
don't want the power consumption.
Okay.
Okay, so what is the solution?
Yeah.
So one very conservative solution say, okay, I'm going to use what is the result of 300 million years of evolution, which
Uh-huh.
is our nervous system.
Uh-huh.
Okay, it's made of neurons, and 300 million years of evolution of life has been towards power efficiency.
Yes.
So
Okay.
if you have a problem of power efficiency, trust nature,
Yeah.
because she's done the work for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So now um, comes the challenge. Okay, the first challenge is that this is living things. This is biology. Okay,
Yeah.
and the first challenge is that we did not know anything about biology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
and so we had to train ourselves in cell culture, in neurobiology. Well, basically learn from zero. Okay,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
it's very simple. We didn't know anything. So very
Okay.
so, but we found a number of people who could train us.
Yeah.
We took the time to understand how to do cell culture, how to
Mhm.
avoid contamination, how to tow cells directly from liquid nitrogens and run protocols, use microscope to see your cells and do electrostimulations and many other things that you have to do right in order to
Mhm.
keep your neurons alive and have a fruitful discussion with them, let's say.
Yeah.
And this was a big of a challenge, because this is totally alien. For someone coming like you, actually,
Yeah.
more from the IT world,
Yeah.
this is so different. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. This is very, very different. Like even like as soon as I saw your email, I said, "What is this? I need to talk."
But the thing is
Yeah.
that sometimes innovation comes not from what you already know and your expertise.
No,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
It's crossing the expertise.
yeah,
Okay. And nobody is going to cross with us because it's so strange. So we
yeah,
had to do the path to go into the neurobiology and
yeah,
learn by ourselves what we didn't know.
yeah, yeah,
So, and so hopefully, okay, what we have today is basically a system where we use Python.
yeah,
So again, we are at ease, programming again,
yeah.
but we use Python to stimulate and read from neurons. So
Okay.
we developed an API to communicate with neurons.
To communicate with the signals of the neurons,
Yeah,
basically.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. To be precise. Yeah.
So that's we feel at home again on the programming side.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then we realized also that if you want to have to be able to interpret to get a meaning from their spiking activity or to spike them in a meaningful way for them, okay,
Mhm.
one way, surprisingly,
Mhm.
is to use artificial neural networks.
Okay.
So what we do right now typically is that we have our biological neural networks connected to artificial neural networks, which are a layer,
Mhm.
okay, of interface with the task that we want to accomplish.
Mhm. Okay. That makes more sense now, I would say. So, obviously, you started multiple companies, right? So, what is like the most satisfying moment of starting a business, or even this? In fact, I have to say, what the work that you're doing is very, very, I mean, even to for me to interview and kind of understand this, I feel like somebody is going to listen to this interview 300 years from now and be like, oh wow, that was, or 100 years from now or something, or that was like the beginning, they're going to say, right? So what is the most satisfying moment as you're building these businesses?
So you took building these businesses because I co-built, okay, two business,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
Alpvision and FinalSpark, okay, but these are very different businesses, okay.
yeah,
Alpvision is more on engineering, successful money making company.
yeah,
Okay? So the most successful thing here was to become profitable in
mhm,
2003.
yeah,
Very important.
yeah,
And since then, we have very good finances. Okay?
yeah,
And if you run a company, for me, the profitability of your operations are critical. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
And if you do something where that has adds some value to the people,
mhm,
and they pay you for this, it's extremely satisfying. Okay.
yeah,
Particularly, you have to consider that we live in Switzerland,
yeah,
which has some of the highest wages in the world. So
yeah,
you have to be really, really good for your system to be competitive at the worldwide level.
yeah, yeah,
So the pleasure of inventing something which is worth money and enough money so you can make a living out of it, and then and all our employees also is very satisfying. Okay,
yeah,
and then as years go by, you see that more and more people are using your system. Okay, so if
mhm,
I talk about Alvision, we have 30 billions of products which are protected each year. So we have a worldwide impact with these
mhm,
technologies that we invented.
mhm.
Now, if I talk about FinalSpark, so FinalSpark here, it's not about money making short term. Certainly not. It's about money spending.
Yeah. No, but it's because sometimes like even like Maker's Bar, what we are doing here, right? I mean, I could be doing a lot more other things, but why am I doing this? It sometimes I feel like okay, I'm investing capital into this, and I'm not trying to make money out of it. But But there is a satisfaction that you get when you do work, which is for the upliftment of the society. It's like to a different, I would say. I mean, when of course this is even more difficult what you're doing, right? Because these are some researches which are going to be read for many years from now, right? So I definitely don't think every endeavor has to be money making, because every endeavor is money making, then people stop getting creative completely.
Yes, you're right. And FinalSpark is a perfect demonstration of what you are saying. Okay,
Yeah,
because it's not making money at all, and it's
yeah,
not the short-term goal, so it cannot be the inspiration.
yeah,
Certainly not. But here, the inspiration is really trying to make a revolution. Okay,
yeah,
something which has never been done before.
yeah,
Actually, even not really thought before.
yeah,
Okay, which was your initial surprise.
yeah,
What are you doing? I don't understand what you're doing. Okay, it's so incredible that it doesn't fit into brains people normally. Okay, so this is something we love. Okay,
yeah,
to do something which is so incredible that it's
yeah,
unthinkable. Okay,
yeah,
that is wonderful. And maybe it's a bit metaphysics here, but
yeah,
personally I love science fiction, for instance.
yeah,
I think it's very inspirational. Okay?
yeah,
And here we feel we are not the only ones, by the way. There are
mhm,
a few other companies working in this direction now, um, at the leading edge of humankind progress. Okay,
yes,
and about what we could do tomorrow. Okay,
yeah,
and this is incredibly satisfying.
yeah,
And I must say also that, so initially this was only what we thought. Okay,
yeah,
we thought it was inspiring. We thought it was incredible. Just to work on this was
yeah,
just, you know, a gift every day. A gift. I am
yes,
honored to work on such a thing.
yeah, yeah,
What helped then even more is that because we've been working many years on this and totally unknown,
yeah,
okay, but still very excited. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
but then last year
yeah,
suddenly our company became viral.
yeah, okay,
So that added another layer of
okay,
sort of recognition, okay, to
yeah,
some level of that what we were doing was also inspiring others.
yeah, yeah,
And for instance, so we had, well, people like you who talk with us, okay,
yeah,
and we have also a Discord server when we have more than 1,000 members who are asking us questions every day. uh, we have users, there are people doing some videos or debate about what we're doing,
yeah,
and there is also philosophers and ethicians working
yeah,
that we help working on this topic from a philosophical perspective.
yeah.
This is, I mean, opening so many avenue of thinking that it adds to the inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the cusp of physics, science, computing, even philosophy. You're right, right? It's at the cusp of all of these, and intelligence as well, right? It's at the cusp of everything. So yes, that's why even I was very surprised, and I was like, I want to learn more. So how do you? So obviously, as you said, right, when you started working, uh, you had like, I mean, it's a very difficult journey. What you're doing is not easy. So you must have had doubts, questions. How did you handle adversity during this whole process as you're working on, and you continue to probably deal with adversity, I'm sure. Yeah,
Well, so here adversity is really fundamental. Okay,
yeah,
it's not about money. It's not about
yeah,
customers or deliveries or stressing things like this. Okay,
yeah,
it's more about um, what comes into play when you do fundamental research.
yeah.
What are we doing right now? For instance, let me give you some examples. Okay.
Okay.
I told you I take some neurons, I connect them, and then I stimulate them, and
Yeah,
normally I should be able to make a processor. Okay,
yeah,
very candid explanation.
yeah,
Let me tell you some of the issues.
yeah,
Okay, uh, in our brain we have 400 different types and subtypes of neurons.
yeah,
So first question: which type of neurons should I use?
yeah,
I don't know. Actually, nobody knows. I
Yeah.
cannot even help. I can help by the literature on this topic.
Yeah.
But even more fundamental, if you take an artificial neural network and you take random weights, random parameters,
Yeah.
the output is not going to be usefully correlated to the input. The loss will be big. It will be basically useless. What you need is to do a training. A training is just modify the weight in order to have um, a useful output, like dog and cat recognized. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we have the same problem. We have also neurons connected together, and we need to have a meaningful output. That means that we have to change the weight of the connections. But this time, these are not just numbers in a tensor, like in PyTorch, for instance.
Yeah.
These are synaptic connections
Yeah.
of living organisms.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the question is, how do I modify these connections?
Yeah. Yeah.
If I am able to modify, then I'm able to master so-called in vitro learning. So in biology, you have two classes of operations: in vivo, directly on the animal, or in vitro, outside of the animal.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are in vitro only.
Okay.
So how do you master this way of changing the connections and therefore mastering learning in vitro? We don't know. So
Yeah.
I told you about the types and subtypes of neurons.
Yeah.
This is not the only problem.
Yeah.
For instance, in our brain, we have a system for reward recognition,
Okay.
and dopamine is implied in reward recognition. Okay, and we know that reward is one of the mechanisms which is implied in learning process.
Okay.
Do we need to use also neuromodulators like dopamine? We don't know. So we do it. Okay, we have systems to introduce dopamine at specific times in the learning process. And we can do the same for other things like serotonin or glutamate.
Yes.
These are two classes of problems, for instance, only on the biology side. Now, on the processing side, neurons are spiking. So they send a small, I would say yes or no, okay? Like 0 and 1, actually, spike of electricity, I would say, okay, when they are active. But these are thousands or millions of spikes. How do we interpret them? Okay,
Yeah.
it's one of the biggest challenge. And when you communicate with them, which spike do you send in which order? And actually, are you even able to modify the synaptic connections by finding the right way to stimulate them? These are all open questions. So you can just see here some three types of problems that we have to solve. And for each of these problems, we have a bunch of experiments to try to locate what is the best way to do each of these things.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's literally like cutting edge. So, um, you talked about like Switzerland being very very expensive and one of the highest labor costs, right? So how are you able to attract talent to work on something like this, which is obviously futuristic? There's a lots that's still which is unknown. Is it mostly researchers, PhDs that are in your team, or
Oh yeah.
yeah? And what is like your leadership style? As you build FinalSpark. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Well, FinalSpark, it's 6 people first.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a startup. It's small. Okay. And of course, of course, it can only be quite horizontal. Okay.
Okay.
Because I only work, I would say, with people who are better than me. so
Yeah.
it's more like open discussions on which experiments we are going to do and why we believe that it's worth investing some time on this or this experiments. So it's and now about the fact we are in Switzerland. That's right. It's expensive. However, the people here are very well trained, and
Yeah.
most of the people at FinalSpark have a PhD actually, or a
Yeah.
PhD student. So it's you need actually some level of understanding to be useful in this kind of fundamental research and to be extremely flexible to to others' ideas, knowing that it's fundamentally interdisciplinary. That
Mm-hmm.
means the discussions, well, just at this table 1 hour ago, okay, we had discussions between neurobiologists and engineer in charge of the electrode systems to communicate. And these two things matter, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You cannot do one without thinking about the other one. So
Yes.
everyone has to communicate and grab some of the expertise of the other in
Mm-hmm.
order to have a useful discussion.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about starting this in 2013. Obviously, you had to do a lot of learning, as you said. You had to understand biology because you all of you, maybe some of you have come from biology as well. But how has it evolved since then? Since working on it for a good decade, like how has the business evolved, or how has the company evolved as
Well,
such?
yeah, first, the biology we started only in 2020. Okay,
Okay.
so 5 years ago. Okay,
Yeah.
so it evolved from from scratch, from zero, to be able to master to integrate vertically all the operations from, I mean, multiplying the neurons, creating brain organoids, creating the system of electrodes to communicate with them, and also the entire microfluidic system. Okay, these neurons are in a wet environment, therefore the wetware computer naming. So we had also to master a way to have fluids and basically water coming to the neurons 24/7.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so there are many things which have to go well.
Mm-hmm.
And this, in addition to the fact to offer an interface with the neurons, which can be used by many others.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like I was talking about Python interface
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that comes with documentation and everything here.
Yeah. Okay.
So it has evolved from nothing to, I would say, operational systems. And if you are, I mean, on the front of your computer, on or you have a smartphone, you can just go to finalspark.com, go
Mm-hmm.
on the live section.
Mm-hmm.
On the live section, you can see in real time,
Mm-hmm.
as you're hearing me, the activity of the neurons, which are streamed
Okay.
live
Yeah.
from our cell lab, just one floor below where I'm talking now. Okay, so
Okay.
if you see some activity, so that means some small spikes. That means they are living. If there is no activity, they are dead.
Yeah.
So simple as this.
Okay. So tell me about a book or a mentor that has inspired you over the years.
I mean, I will revert back to science fiction here.
Yeah.
Okay, if we talk about book, um, and Arthur C. Clarke is one of probably the most inspirational author of science fiction
Uh-huh.
in the way he describes progress of mankind, technological progress of mankind,
Yeah.
and how this is meaningful.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of a positive future based on technology.
Yeah.
I know it's not fashionable,
Yeah.
because these times people love to think about technology as something which is dangerous somehow. Okay,
Yeah.
and um, I don't feel this way at all. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
and if I look back, like I'm better living today than 1,000 years ago.
Agreed.
I
Which
prefer.
people don't understand.
So
100%. And they'll
and
say the same thing about artificial intelligence too. They'll be like, thank God this exists.
I hope that I can contribute to build a future where people 1,000 years in the future will
Yeah.
recognize that what we are doing today has
Yeah.
made the world better, actually.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
this is one thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes I love the idea of you see these pictures when we see the Earth very small, in space.
Yeah.
Okay, very small like this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the question I always ask myself, if I was like so far, so I see the Earth like this.
Yeah.
What I'm doing right now, is that still meaningful?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. A lot of scientists say this. I mean, my husband is one. So he often describes the same thing. When you see yourself on space, you're a minute creature, and the amount of ego you have, kind of a thing. So I've seen that. It's a very scientific thing, I feel. So, okay. So, what, according to you, is the most critical skills that an entrepreneur needs? And what advice would you give somebody who's starting a company?
I well, there is a basic condition which is energy.
Hmm.
Okay, I
Yeah.
don't believe you can be successful as an entrepreneur if you
Yeah.
don't have energy. Okay,
Yeah.
you have to
Yes, you have
have
to.
it. And this is moral gift. Okay,
Yeah.
but but now what drives a lot the energy is how meaningful what you are doing is for you,
Yeah.
only for you. This is what matters. Okay, and if what you do is inspirational for you, I mean, actually you are going to have this energy naturally. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
so at the end of the day, it just ends up finding what motivates you. Okay,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
is meaningful for you. Okay,
Hmm.
and for me this is very very exciting. Okay,
Hmm. Yeah.
so then it all comes from this. Okay, and then the rest will follow, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, because if you are very self-motivated,
Yeah.
okay, inspired by what you are doing, okay, you are going to find solutions
Yeah.
to solve all the problems, and you are also going to have the energy to learn what you don't know yet,
Yes.
to go in the direction. So
And
I'm
no
here.
matter the age, you will have the energy to do it. I feel if
Yeah,
you are like if you love what you're doing, of course.
yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And once I'm here, I
Yeah.
want to go there because it's so incredible to go
Yeah.
there. Okay? It
Yeah.
has to be incredible. It has to be fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
and then I will do everything I need to do in order to get there.
Yeah.
So, and at the end of the day, it's a lot about learning things that you're just missing,
Hmm.
and also working with people which do better than you the things where you are really missing too much,
Yeah. Yeah.
and working together. So so
So I
looking at
have
the
a
yeah.
I have a slightly different take to this question, right? You have a PhD, and we are living in a world where information is at your fingertips, right? Pretty much, and obviously you built companies which are deep tech, and this is extreme deep tech, where what you're building within FinalSpark, right? So, in a world where we live, where we as of now stand, and I think a lot of parents, as they look at their kids, they think about what is going to be the future. Would you recommend somebody having the scientific understanding and the background? Because I personally feel like it makes people much more analytical, and I mean, whether you're starting a company or not, right? What you've obviously done your journey. So, what, according to you, is you know recommended in today's world as we live?
So just for the basics, okay.
Yeah.
Before I mean, personal equilibrium, okay,
Yeah.
is essential here, okay.
Yeah.
But you're right. Rational thinking,
Yeah.
okay, is absolutely required. Okay,
Yeah.
there are a number of things that have to be done based on correct analysis of the situation
Yeah.
in order to react correctly. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's true for scientific things.
Hmm.
Okay, and programming is one of them. Very
Yeah.
good. But that's true of many other things when you run a company, like
Yeah.
finances, for instance. Decision of buying this or this hardware is a lot about rational thinking. Okay,
Hmm.
and you're right that for this, if you have this scientific background,
Hmm.
because if you have a PhD, you are used to have this kind of process. It's built
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's right.
so it's a basic requirement. Okay, that
Yeah.
we will always consider all the people working in our field and environment, and probably in yours, are also wired
Yeah.
this way. Okay,
Yeah.
I would say that is very good. This is the minimum requirement.
Hmm.
It's probably not enough, uh, because you need more than this. Okay,
Yeah.
but this is the basis. And of course, my child, for instance, my wife and I, well, she's also a scientist, so it's easy. So they had a lot of this rational thinking and relations to not to truth. It's more about um, putting things in perspective. Whatever information you have, okay, putting in perspective, trying to realize that sometimes things are complex.
Yeah.
Okay, you
Yeah.
may not have simple solution to complex question.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, normally, okay, in this world, people love to have, instant answer to complex question, but it's not. Sometimes it's just not possible. Okay,
Yeah.
so just understanding well the question is already something good. Okay.
Yeah. That's amazing. So I have to say, amongst all my interviews, I should probably not pick and choose. This was the most interesting one, and I learned something. Which I mean, it opened my mind. I have to say, opened my mind to possibilities. So it was a pleasure talking to you, Dr. Jordan, and thank you for coming on Maker's Bar.
Thank you for your invitation. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.